on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is C.K. Collins, also known as Kelly. She writes about her 5 year journey back to empowerment, joy, happiness, and love. In gratitude and recognition of the gifts of love she has received, Kelly unfolds her ongoing journey to wholeness through storytelling and shares the lessons she has learned from her friends all over the world. Well, Kelly Collins, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Listen, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. We're definitely going to talk about your new book and your new podcast a little later. But first of all, Kelly, tell us your journey. How did you get here today? What was it about what was it that you needed to write this book about, which we'll definitely again talk about? And what was that journey like for you?
Well,
I
I've
know it's a
loved
loaded question, but you may give us a short version.
how long do we have again? No, I'll go short. My background is like sales and marketing, which always, of course, involved a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And I eventually got around to starting my own business in 2009 with a partner, and she was the journalist. I was the business marketing, additional writing. And we turned that business into a news publishing company. And I was also 31 years married.
Mhm.
And so about the time my marriage, hit the fan, I was also deciding that it was about time to sell the business. So all these huge changes were going on at the same time. And I I had to stay with the company that bought my company for 3 years. I retired in 2021 and decided to do a travel sabbatical. Traveled for a year, was really thinking about, and yes, I did do some dating in there too, but but I was thinking about all of the things that had helped me get back to happy,
Mhm.
get back to a fulfilled life. And that's when I decided to write the book as I pay it forward to all the people. I mean, I just have amazing, amazing friends, and they're the ones who I interview them in the book. And so it was just kind of paying it forward, the advice they gave me, sharing that with other people.
And tell us the name of that book again.
The Swipe Right Effect, The Power to Get Unstuck.
Yeah, I love that title. So, going back, or let's say in when you were doing the book and you're talking to people and all that, has dating changed in the last? I I I, I don't want to say 20 years, but I think in the last 5 years, has expectations from both sexes has gone up. It seems men are looking for women that are very pure, and women are looking for men that are extraordinary skills and income and
Mm.
all that. Has that come more upfront now than it did back maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Well, 15 years ago, I was married, so I have no idea. But 5 years ago, I can speak to. Um, I feel like it's hard for me to know if the actual dating world changed or was it me that changed, because
Okay.
what I was looking for 5 years ago is very different from what I'm looking for now. And I think a lot of that came from the healing that I had
Mhm.
and the expectations of myself. But also, I think COVID changed a lot. I think when we were all so isolated, I think it made people do different things. It made some people really go introspective, and that was a growth thing for them, or it became a depression thing for them.
Yeah.
And then, like me, I was like, I'm selling my business. I've already sold well, I had sold my business. And then I was sitting there in the middle of a 3 year contract, and I'm like, I'm not going to sit here in this house for the rest of my life. I'm going to retire and travel. And
Right.
so that innately changed what I was looking for
Yeah.
in dating, because now I'm retired. So I kind of want somebody who's at least got enough vacation to go travel with me, different things like that. But I do think that there was so much time for people to work on themselves that maybe everybody went a little deeper.
Right.
And I see a lot more men on Bumble or Hinge or whatever that are talking about yoga and meditation and looking for someone who has peace in their life. And, so I think I didn't see that before. It seemed to be much more aggressive
Mm.
before COVID. And I see people now, men and women, that are wanting to take their time.
Okay, it seems that way, and it's funny because today's topic is believe them the first time, and please explain, because I might have a different interpretation, but I just seen over the last couple of years that again, expectations from both sexes have gone up real high. You hear these terms, toxic masculinity and feminism, and oh my god, all these terms, body count, and
Hmm.
high status, or high valued man, high valued women, all these new terms that I've just started hearing over the last couple of years. And when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, that was maybe, like you said, maybe because of COVID, things changed. People started looking inside themselves a little bit more, decided that they wanted, ramp up their criteria. But Kelly, this is all new to me. Even a couple of years later, all these new terms. What's
Right.
going on?
Yeah, I guess the self-help book industry probably did as well as the wine and beer industry during COVID.
Well, I definitely agree there, but with the beer and wine industry, yeah,
Yeah. Oh
definitely.
my gosh. I have had advertising customers who were wine stores, and they were just we can't fill up the gas in the trucks fast enough to deliver them. He was just like, it's the booze was just flying out the door.
Yeah. So
And which is not great, but it also made people, like, it completely innovated his business. He bought 5 delivery trucks. He did all these things. So that was kind of a cool thing that happened for him. It's
right. So tell us in about your book. Talk about the swipe right effect. What came about it? What did you see again in the marketplace? And then one of the chapters, which we'll dive into, is believe him the first time. So let's talk about the book. How did that come about?
So when I was doing my year of travel sabbatical, um, I literally was just kind of getting in the mind of attitude of gratitude.
Right, right,
and
right.
um and so I really started fleshing out, like, okay, this friend said this to me, and it really completely changed my life. Like, that statement. And sometimes it wasn't in that moment that they said it to me. It was 3 months later. Oh, that's what Allison meant. That's Now I see what she was trying to say.
Mm,
And so I ended up, outlining the book while I was traveling, and I finished a year of travel. I decided to settle down in Rhode Island. I wanted to be by the ocean for a little while. I'm from Tennessee, and I have
okay.
never lived by the ocean. So super cool, great place to write a book. And and so each chapter turned out to be me telling my story of where I was, the piece of advice that they gave me, and then I interviewed them and asked them how they learned it. And
Right.
so, because I didn't want a book that's just about me. I mean, I I don't know how interesting I could be if it were the whole thing was about me, right? But so it's
Right.
10 other people in the book, and so it's really kind of a mini memoir of all of us. And I really think that the advice that they gave can help other people too. And the reason that subtitle is the way that it is because
Mm,
stuck. Everybody kept saying at some point during almost all 10 interviews,
mm,
somebody said, I was stuck and blah. And so that subtitle was not there until like the end of the book, after I started transcribing all the interviews and editing all of the interviews. And then the title, The Swipe Right Effect, really came at the end. At first it was going to be swiping right after 50. And all of my beta readers was like, this is not anything about over 50. This is advice for any age,
right.
male, female, whatever. And so I started thinking about, yeah, because the effect that this advice had on me. And so I wanted to keep the swiping because I did want to talk about dating. And because all of this is about, so the swipe right effect is about choosing yourself and
Mm,
doing the work like people did over COVID, to bringing that back around. But, work on, get rid of that anger, forgive who you need to forgive, love yourself, have some kind of self-love mantra, have a vision for your life. If you don't know what you want, then how is somebody going to know that they want you? Because you don't know
Mm.
what you want. I mean, they're looking at you going, are you a potential life partner? If you have no idea what you want in life, where you want to go, who you want to be, the kind of things you want to do, how can you be ready for a partnership? So
Yeah.
it's about swiping right for yourself before you start swiping right in the dating world. You can do both at the same time, but I believe I jumped in too soon and I did the work as I went, and it would have been easier had I done it up front, I think.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And in one of the chapters of the book that I saw was believe them the first time. So explain that, because again, my interpretation might be a little bit different. So I want to hear your interpretation first, and then I'll see, and I'll tell you my version,
Well,
even though you wrote the book.
there's a Maya Angelou quote that is when someone tells you about themselves, believe them the first time. And I had been on this date, and I give everybody's anonymous in the book, so he's Sam in the book. But I had been on a date with Sam, and on our first date, he says, "Oh, my daughter thinks I'm a chauvinist pig. Ha 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 ha. She just doesn't like how I tease her. I am so broke, I can't, blah. I can't pay for blah." And then he's like, "Yeah, and then my coworkers tell me I'm an asshole." I'm like,
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I grew up in a very sarcastic family. And so I literally thought he was being sarcastic or humble or whatever, because other than the things he told me, he seemed to really have it together.
Right.
So I went the next day and I had a glass of wine with my friend, Casey in the book. Her name's Casey. And she says, "Kelly, there's this quote, and maybe I think you need to believe him, because if his friends think he's an asshole, he's probably an asshole." And
Wow.
I still went out with him a few more times. And so I'm saying, my humble advice is to don't do what I did. If somebody says they're an asshole, believe they're an asshole.
Okay, so yeah, we are definitely on the same page, because I remember I was dating this woman, and she pretty much put up her red flags right up front. I mean, huge red flags where it's waving. In fact, the opposite way of go. Don't come
Yeah,
this way, but go. And I still ignored
run.
it because there was something about her that I liked, but she pretty much told me her red flags up front, and I ignored it. Uh, I think it was a few months later when I realized this wasn't going anywhere. So I kind of and I admit I partly ghost her, but we still communicated through text and all that. And I just said, I'm just busy and stuff like that, because it
Yeah.
wasn't going anywhere, the relationship. But again, she told me what she was, who she was. And then when I realized it down the road, I'm like, oh my God, this woman gave me her red flags and I just ignored it.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely believe them the first time, because when someone says, like you said, oh, my friend, they say I'm an a-hole, or I'm cheap and all that. Yeah, you know what, if they're telling you that, then you better believe it as the other person in that date. So once you started noticing that, how much did that change you? Were you more cautious when you went out with certain people, or you just still gave them the benefit of the doubt? You know what? People can change.
Good question. I think that's about when I started saying, I really would like to have a phone call before we go out.
Mm,
And I started asking those questions up front before a date, because I learned that my time is really precious, and so is theirs. If I'm not interested, then I don't want to waste their time either. And I tried to have that attitude. Like, I really just would like to get to know you a little better before we go on the date.
mm.
And if they don't want to talk on the phone, that in itself is a red flag.
I'm with you 110%. If a woman doesn't want to talk to me, then I pretty much ignore, because I'm thinking I'm being catfished or ghosted, whatever. At least catfished. So yeah, I'm with you. So continue. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that, and then I had a few people ask if we could FaceTime, and I think that was smart on their side, because you do want to see if someone is pretty to you or handsome to you or
Yeah.
whatever. And sometimes I think it's good because you get a general feeling for whether that person is a light personality or a really heavy personality, or,
Yeah.
and I think you can get that same information from a phone call, but it's really nice to see somebody's body language. Are they animated or are they really quiet? Or because somebody can talk on the phone, but then maybe be extremely introverted in a group situation, like or
Yeah.
even a restaurant instead of, just a one-on-one. And I think, that was also something I started looking for, was introversion versus extroversion, because I am a total extrovert. And if I want them to be able to, be really comfortable with me one-on-one, or I don't think it's going to go anywhere, because I need that. I need that interaction. I
Yeah.
need somebody to be able to talk to me, um, and be interested in what I'm having to say, as opposed to only listening to themselves, which happened last night on a date.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. Touch more base on that one. That sounds interesting.
Yes, it was interesting. Well, I think the guy, uh, he likes hearing himself talk, and
Okay.
he's very funny. So I think the more I laughed, the more he felt like he was kind of a comedian on stage, and he just kept trying to make me laugh which was fun, but he didn't really try to get to know me at all.
Okay.
He was just like bada bing, bada boom. And oh my God, I was laughing all night long. And so it was fun, but I bet he can't tell you a darn thing about me.
Yeah, because he didn't ask.
He didn't ask. Yeah. I think that's interesting. Yeah. But
I
it's nice guy, super nice
Yeah.
guy, and obviously very funny.
Right. Well, there you go. You got that part, but I mean, obviously, he didn't get to. And it's a give and take, because you're doing interviews with each other,
Hmm.
getting to know what you like, what you don't like, what turns you on, what turns you off, I don't, what you like to watch in movies, things like that. And I agree. And I want to touch base back on talking on the phone and FaceTime, because I meet women through I prefer the networking events. At least you could see them live, you could talk to them, and then maybe get a small feel.
Hmm.
To me, when a woman that sends me a message through Instagram, and then I say, hey, do you talk on the phone or whatever, and they always say, oh no, it's too soon, oh my phone doesn't work, then I just ignore them, or I just block them, because it's like I said, it's a red flag. um Going back to that gentleman that you talked to yesterday, um, when you knew, how did you know? Was it halfway through the date that this was going to be a one-sided interview? If my question makes sense.
I would say, he had kind of a rough day. He'd had car accident. He'd gotten rear-ended in front of his truck, and so he was just kind of spouting off about that in the beginning. So I was just like, let him calm down, and like
Yeah,
because I guess he kind of rushed to get to the date because of all that happening,
yeah,
and then I I think I was on like my third question. I'm asking him, trying to get to know about him, and I realized he's just answering me and moving on. He's not reciprocating with wanting to know the exact same information about me. So
yeah.
that was probably about halfway through the date. And I just decided to relax and have fun, because he was fun, and it was great. And I would go out with him again. I would just hope
I was going to
that,
ask you that. Yeah.
yeah, because we did have fun. I definitely would like to go out with him again. But I think if he continued to not be interested in me and did not ask questions about me, I think I, in my vision statement of what I want in a relationship, I use the word reciprocal. I think
Mm,
it's really important. You're not always going to have a 50-50 relationship on any given day. Some days it
right.
might be 70-30, some days it might be 40-60, but at least you don't want to be the only interested party, because that's just actual, it's a red flag, but it's also a lonely place to be.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, especially when someone just talks about themselves all the time, and they might ask you a question just to me, I call it a throwaway question, like, "Oh, how are you?" And I had friends like that. I should say, a friend like that, where I mean, we don't no longer speak because it was just all about her.
Hmm.
And this is not the one I was dating, but this is another one that it was just whenever I talked to her, it was 30 minutes of talking, and I maybe talked for about a minute.
Yes.
Everything was all about her.
Yes.
I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is what happened to me. This, and I'm like, oh my God. And then near the end, oh, how's it going with you? Oh, good. And then I just bring it back to her, which was her favorite subject anyway, was talking about her. So
Um,
then,
well, if you're
so
having to interrupt somebody to say "me too," like, "Oh, but," you know,
yeah,
excuse
exactly.
me, excuse me. If you're having
Yeah.
to interrupt just to say, "I agree."
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
such a continuous conversation
Mhm.
of her talking about, part nonsense, part what she's going through, part, dating and all that crap. That after a while, I just said, "Holy shit, this girl doesn't really ask anything about anybody else. It's all about
Yeah,
her."
yeah.
So then, like I said, our friendship ended over I won't say a misunderstanding, whatever it was. To me, it was good riddance
It
because
was yeah,
whenever I talked to her, I knew it was going to be 30 minutes of her just blabbing,
yeah,
and I hate to say it that way because, she didn't get to know me as a friend. And the other girl I was dating, like, again, it was just about her and her escapades and things
yeah.
like that. So it's always a learning experience, and seeing the red flags now that I didn't see before. And one of the things, Kelly, and we're talking with Kelly Collins, the book is called The Swipe Right Effect. Um, is it possible for us, for a couple, even to get to know each other these days? I mean, it seems
Mhm.
that one dominates more the conversation. How do you interject yourself in it, like what you went through and what I went through?
Right,
How can we say, hey, I'm here. How about me?
right.
Ask me a question.
Yeah.
Does
Well, I
that does
feel
that make sense?
yeah, yeah. I feel like I've been on the other side of that too. Like when I said like the introvert, dated
Yeah.
a couple of them longer term and it was they wanted me to only talk about me. They didn't want to talk about themselves. And they would
Mm.
ask me something I would answer and then I would reciprocate the question back to them and they would just give me like a very short answer and ask me another question. So it was a deflection situation because they didn't like talking about themselves. And so I think it's important to just kind of ask somebody, what,
Mm.
are you an introvert? What do you consider yourself an introvert, an extrovert? Are you comfortable talking about, maybe not on the first date, ask this question, but are you comfortable talking about really personal things like sex? Are you comfortable talking about any, previous, what you've learned from previous relationships? I think that's a really important question to me because if they can't or don't want to talk about what they've learned, oh, I don't talk about other relationships. Well, I don't want you to talk about the relationship. I want you to talk about what you learned,
Would that
because
be
I know what
too
I
much
learned from my
information?
marriage. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Kelly, I didn't mean to cut you off. Would
That's okay.
that be too much information at the beginning, asking that type of question? Maybe like you said, but not talk about the relationship, but talk about what you learned, because I think that's important, because I don't want to bring my last self to this relationship,
Right.
especially if I, was uh totally ignored. Then I don't want to, like, oh, okay, is that normal? Let me do that to her, and I don't want to do that. The,
Right.
so I think that the way you ask and phrase it, I think that that's a good point. Is like, no, no, don't talk about your ex, but what
Mm-mm.
did you learn? I like that.
Yeah, because that's who you were, not who you
Right.
are. And so now that this person has learned something, that's who they are. Now this is where their heart and their soul are walking into a potential relationship with me. And so I think those are ways you can figure out if somebody's going to want to get to know you. But having been on either side of that one-sided conversation,
Yeah.
I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want both people participating. And I've had a couple of really great dates in the last month or so that have been like that. Even if it wasn't somebody I wanted to pursue, I really appreciate the fact that we had that type of conversation. I feel
Right.
like I got to know that person, and if I see them out, it will be fun to see them again, even if we're not on a date together. And I think that's probably the other thing when it comes to your overall question there was are you willing to just get to know somebody, whether
Right.
it ends up a relationship or not? Do you have an attitude of, I'm looking for new friends and maybe one of those friends will be my sweetheart someday?
Right.
That's how I recommend to people who are starting dating. I'm just like, just go look for friends, and then hopefully you'll find your person. That's how I am, because if I were hinging my heart and soul on every single date, it would be
Mm.
exhausting.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, because the way my marriage ended was tough, there was betrayal. When I first started dating, I was looking to have some kind of, my ego to be fulfilled through someone else, which is a very unhealthy thing to do. And so I had to learn, to find satisfaction in who I was and love myself, as opposed to be looking for that magic bullet that somebody's going to make me feel better because they find me attractive. That's not
Mhm.
reality, and that's not how it works. So, I at the time I was doing it all wrong. I wasn't really looking for a friend first. And I like it
Mm.
when a person says that in their profile. Friends first, and then we'll see what happens, because that's how I think. And so I'm like, "Oh, cool." They relate to me. Now somebody else might say, "I am only looking for relationships, swipe left."
Right.
But
I gotcha.
I suggest that's actually a good place to go. I'm not looking to get married tomorrow. I do want a friend first, and I want to have things in common with you. Do you like history like I do? Do you like the ocean like I do? Do you like to hike
Right.
like I do? And I want them to be asking me questions about things they like. Do you want to go on a motorcycle ride across the country? No, I do not. So
Yeah, I
I think
gotcha.
I want them to ask me too, because I mean, I shouldn't say that. Maybe someday I will, but not right now.
Right. No, no, I definitely get it. Well,
My
first
kids
of
would
all,
be very upset with me if I did
yeah,
that.
you're leaving them flat and you're going on a cross country, which would be kind of cool. You never know. I mean, you might
Yeah.
try it down the
I'll do
road.
it in an RV for sure, or
There you
a decked out van. Yeah, a
Yeah.
camper van. I would do that, but a motorcycle, no.
No, I definitely get it. Well, first of all, Kelly, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I had a great time, which I probably could have talked to you for another hour. Talk more about your book. Again, give us the name of the book. Where can people find it? Things like that.
The Swipe Right Effect: The Power to Get Unstuck. And the name on the book is CK Collins. And it's available on Amazon, in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. And it's also available on audiobook on a lot of the different platforms, like Nook and Kobo and audiobooks.com. It should be on Amazon soon. I'm just waiting, going through their process, but I did record it for audiobooks. And then they can also find the links to all of that at ckcollins.co. And I mean, there's also I have some freebies
Yeah,
on
talk about your tip sheet.
I have 10 ways to get unstuck.com. You can get that there. There's also a link to it at ckcollins.co, but it's basically just a very abbreviated version of the empowerment practices that I have in the book. And it's just 10 different ways that you can kind of start to try to move forward, whether that's a vision board or a self-love mantra, meditation. There's a lot of different things in there that,
Yeah.
because I think once you have decided that you want to get unstuck, the first thing you have to do is make the choice as to how you're going to do that. And that's where your power is. Your power is in your choice. And
Mm.
so I just encourage people to download the 10 ways to get unstuck, and just take a look at it, see if there's um something in there for you to help you move on. And, again, don't go date if you're stuck. Get unstuck first.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree there. And I'll definitely put that on the show notes. And you have a new podcast that's about to come out, right? Or is it out already?
No, it's going to start in April
Okay.
of 2023. So in case people watch this later, it is called The Swipe Right Effect. And I want to talk about all of these things about, whether it's you've lost a job, or you've lost someone to cancer, or whether you've lost a marriage. Everybody goes through big life changes. And I would say in pretty much every instance, you need to swipe right for yourself first before you go on and you got to heal before you can move on. And so I just want to talk about that on I think it'll be fun to have you on
Yes, I told you
and
I'll
talk
definitely
about
be on.
dating.
Yes, yes, I'll definitely be on. It'd be my honor. And tell us the website again so people can get in contact with you.
ckcollins.co. And there is a web form on there if anybody wants to reach out to me. I'd be happy to get back. My word this year, my goal is to gather with
Yeah,
people like
I
this.
like that.
I just as many people as I can reach and have this discussion, because I really think there's a saying that grief is like water. The more you spread it around, the more it evaporates.
Right.
And so I feel that way about a lot of grieving processes, or a lot of people who are unstuck just need to have a conversation with someone. That's what this whole book is my conversations with my friends. And that's why I wanted to share it, because I believe conversation heals.
No, I definitely agree. Well, again, Kelly, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.